Today we're going for a spin in a top-selling car from the 1930s, the original Opel Kadett. The compact sedan was introduced in 1936 with a selling price of 2,100 Reichsmarks. That made it a mid-range vehicle in Germany, a rare breed at the time. Back then, Opel was growing and introducing new models in the hopes of attracting new groups of buyers, as classic car expert Christoph Bauer explains. He says that in the mid-1930s, Opel was riding a wave of success. In 1935, they became the first German manufacturer to build over 100,000 cars per year. That made Opel the largest maker of passenger cars in Europe. However, this impressive growth was only possible thanks to hefty cash injections from American parent company General Motors, which took a majority stake in Opel in 1929 during the Great Depression. When the German economy started to pick up, the middle class developed an interest in cars. During this time, Opel began using progressive American production methods, like assembly lines and modular construction systems. In 1935, Opel started producing Germany's first mass production car with a monocoque body, the Opel Olympia. A slightly more compact version of the Olympia's body was used to create the Kadett. Its simple technology was largely taken from Opel's entry-level model, the P4. Christoph says a cadet is a military trainee who often hopes to become an officer, but is still far from reaching that goal, and he thinks that's an apt description of the Opel Kadett. While it had the monocoque body modeled on the Olympia, it lacked some of that much more expensive car's finesse. Still, at its premiere in Berlin in 1936, Opel's sales director touted the Kadett as an everyday car for discerning customers. And the Kadett was a hit. Soon the compact model from Rüsselsheim had become the best-selling car in its class, and the quickest. Though it eked just 23 horsepower out of its 1.1-liter engine, it still left the competition in the dust, thanks to its low curb weight of just 757 kilos. With a little patience and a heavy foot, Christoph can almost push the Kadett to 100 kilometers an hour mark. To stop it, the braking system features hydraulic drum brakes on all four wheels. The base model Kadett has two rigid axles on leaf springs, making for a bumpy ride on country roads. However, this special variant has an independent front suspension. It's tuned quite softly though, so when he rounds curves fast, the car really tilts. Christoph says that like most 30s-era vehicles, the Opel Kadett has that streamlined shape and rounded aerodynamic design that was so popular at the time. Back then, integrated headlights were a real novelty. Before that, automakers had simply stuck lights onto the body. Opel's ad executives sang the praises of the car's design, saying, "The front end keeps the cabin airtight while driving, and its smooth, rounded shape makes it easy to clean." Good to know. A stylized Zeppelin adorns the Kadett's hood. It was only in the 1950s and 60s that the airship was gradually replaced by the lightning bolt logo Opel still uses today. Its semaphore type turn signals instead of blinkers, and the externally mounted spare tire distinguish the Kadett as a pre-war model. The interior is very Spartan, with just a few instruments and a lot of bakelite. Like other cars of its day, the trunk space is only accessible from the inside, not very practical. When it came to the engine, Opel employed low-cost, tried-and-true technology. Christoph says the engine is a pretty unspectacular cast iron model with a 1.1 liters of cubic capacity and 23 horsepower that had powered vehicles since 1931. What's innovative was the car's monocoque construction, in which the body, shell, and the undercarriage are melted to create a single unit. This construction method saved weights, making the car faster and more fuel efficient. It also reduced production costs while heightening safety because, along the way, Opel's engineers had invented the crumple zone. The crumple zone was a byproduct of the car's unibody construction, though it was only patented at the end of the 1950s by Mercedes engineer Bella Barrenier. Still, that oversight didn't hurt the Kadett. The little Opel found over 30,000 buyers in its first year alone. Christoph says its progressive technology soon made the Kadett the best-selling car in its class in Germany, with a market share of 59%. Ferdinand Porsche even used it as a comparison while developing the VW Beetle, Germany's first true people's car. In spite of its success, the Kadett didn't earn that distinction. While it was a relatively low-cost car at the time, for the masses, it was still an unaffordable luxury. That's why over 30% of the production was sold abroad. Kadetts could be found on the roads in South Africa, Argentina, China, and New Zealand. After World War II broke out, production ceased. The last original model Kadett rolled off the assembly line in May 1940. Christoph tells us that while production of the Opel Olympia resumed in the post-war years, the Kadett wasn't resurrected. That's because as part of the war reparations, the entire production line in Rüsselsheim was confiscated and shipped off to Russia. There, the Kadett was reborn as the Moskowitz 400 and remained in production until 1959. Thanks to its innovative monocoque body, the Opel Kadett remained competitive for many years, which Christoph says qualifies it as a milestone in automotive history. More than 107,000 rolled off the assembly line in 4 years, making the Kadett Germany's best-selling compact car of the pre-war era. In 1962, the model was reintroduced with the snappy slogan, "OK, like Opel Kadett."
OK, the Opel Kadett.
A total of 6 generations of the Kadett were produced until Opel ceased production in the early 1990s.